been told to avoid anything with a long ingredient list, or if you can't recognize those ingredients, you're not alone. These messages are everywhere. Processed foods are not inherently harmful, and for many dancers, they're actually essential.
I'm Rachel Fine, registered dietitian nutritionist and founder of To The Point Nutrition. A dancer's performance is a direct result of hard work and motivation. So where does food fit into this? There's a lot of myths and a ton of antiquated ideals, and I'm here to dispel those.
Hi dancers! Welcome back to Nutrition for Dancers with me, Rachel Fine, registered dietitian nutritionist. Today we are chatting about one of the most misunderstood topics in the nutrition world. So hopefully I can give you some clarity on processed foods. Because if you've ever felt like eating something out of the package made you feel bad or guilty, or if you've been told to avoid anything with a long ingredient list, or if you can't recognize those ingredients, you're not alone. These messages are everywhere. But here's the truth. Processed foods are not inherently harmful, and for many dancers, they're actually essential for sustaining energy, fueling rehearsals, and even improving nutritional intake. In this discussion, my plan is to unpack where this fear of processed foods comes from, how food processing actually works, and what dancers really need to know about ingredients like sugar, sodium, food additives, and dyes. Most importantly, I will help you shift your mindset away from food fear and towards a more flexible and supportive relationship with all foods, including processed foods. But before I dive in, don't forget to hit subscribe so you're first to know when I share new content. You can also find me over at Instagram. I'm at To The Point Nutrition, and I share daily tips and advice to unravel topics just like this. So now let's get into it. I want to start with the messaging. We've all heard: eat clean, avoid processed foods, choose natural, whole, minimally processed foods. On the surface, this all seems like very harmless advice, but in reality, this language is deeply rooted in diet culture. It also creates a moral hierarchy around food. Some foods are seen as good and others as bad. And if you're eating the bad foods, you feel like you are doing something wrong. This black and white thinking can be incredibly damaging, especially for dancers who at baseline are constantly navigating perfectionism and performance pressure on the daily. And let's not forget, processed foods are everywhere. I'm not just talking about fast food and candy. Frozen vegetables, they're processed. Pasteurized milk, processed. Canned beans, processed. Even the oats in your overnight oats are processed. So let's pause and think. What does processed, especially when it relates to food, even mean? Food processing simply means transforming raw ingredients into forms that are safer, tastier, and more convenient to eat. That could mean washing and cutting fresh produce, cooking or freezing veggies, pasteurizing milk or juice to kill harmful bacteria, fortifying cereal with iron and folic acid, adding preservatives to help extend the shelf life of certain foods. Food processing is not inherently bad. In fact, it's responsible for many of the nutritional safeguards you and I benefit from every day. One example here is fortification. Think about the iron in breakfast cereal, vitamin D in milk, iodine in salt. These additions have significantly reduced nutrient deficiencies within the general population, especially in populations like young children, older adults, and people with limited food access. So again, processed does not equal bad. It's the context and frequency that matter most. Now, one of the biggest concerns that dancers across the board have with processed foods is added sugar. Yes, some processed foods do contain added sugars, but the message around sugar has become so fear-based that we've quickly lost sight of the bigger picture here. Here's what the science actually says. The recommended limit for added sugar, so sugar added to your food, is about 10% of your overall total daily intake. What does that really mean? Well, for a general 2,000 calorie day, that's about 50 grams of sugar. But hold up, most dancers, especially my younger or my elite level dancers, need well above 2,000 calories a day to support their training. So guess what? That minimum allowance of added sugar is actually higher. A small snack bar, some chocolate, or even a flavored yogurt, guess what? Is unlikely to push you over the edge of that recommended daily limit. This doesn't mean I'm telling you that you need to aim for a minimum of 50 grams of added sugar in your day. No, that is not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is that sugar here and there in some of your food choices is not going to harm your health nor your performance. It can be part of a healthy, balanced diet, especially when it's paired alongside foods that are also rich in protein, fats, and complex, more fibrous carbohydrates. So in your flavored yogurt, perhaps add in your favorite granola, maybe some sliced almonds, and maybe even some dried fruit and fresh fruit. This multi-component option is what we're really looking for here when we're focusing on a healthy, balanced meal or snack. Now, moving away from sugar, let's also talk about a couple other feared ingredients when it comes to processed foods, and that's fat and sodium. Since 2018, trans fats, that's the harmful kind, have been banned from packaged foods here in the US. Most of what you see now on nutrition labels are naturally occurring or added fats coming from things like vegetable oils or dairy fats. These are not harmful in the context of an overall balanced meal plan. In fact, these are actually essential for dancers. Fats support hormone production, brain function, and even nutrient absorption. How about sodium? Yes, processed foods often contain more sodium, but especially for dancers, sodium is an essential electrolyte. It helps regulate your fluid balance, your nerve function, and your muscle contraction, especially for those really hot, humid days where you're sweating a lot. General guidelines around sodium recommend staying under 2,300 milligrams a day, but that's an average. If your meal contains 600 milligrams of sodium and your snacks each contain somewhere around 150 to 250 milligrams of sodium, you're likely well into your range. But just a tip, if you are tending to rely more on processed foods like canned foods for nourishment and convenient, you can reduce the sodium content simply by rinsing canned legumes or veggies, diluting soups, or pairing these salty items with potassium-rich items like bananas and leafy greens. So toss in some frozen spinach the next time you make soup for dinner. Now let's shift to something that dancers often find intimidating, and I admit I once did too. Long ingredient lists with words you cannot pronounce. This fear is often driven by the assumption that anything that feels unfamiliar must be unsafe. But here's the truth. Food additives are substances added to food to maintain or improve safety, texture, appearance, or flavor. They're tightly regulated by the Food and Drug Administration, or the FDA, and global organizations like WHO, or the World Health Organization. But here's what's most important. Many of these additives in your processed foods are there in extremely minute amounts, well below what will ever be considered harmful. Let's break this down even further. Artificial versus natural additives, we often assume natural is better, but even natural additives can come with risk. And they oftentimes haven't yet been rigorously tested like their artificial counterparts. Food dyes, let's take Red 40. That's a popular one these days. Yes, some studies in the 1970s linked food dyes to hyperactivity in children, but later reviews found insufficient evidence to support these broad concerns. And while some children with pre-existing ADHD may respond to reduced food dyes in their diet, That doesn't mean that all food dyes are harmful to all people. It's important to look at individual responses, not blanket rules. Red dye number 3, well, it was already banned in 2025, and that's based on a precautionary approach. Now, I'm only brushing the surface here. If these topics interest you, I highly recommend that you look into learning from Food Science Babe. She's a wonderful dietitian who breaks down the nuance behind these topics. So let's now bring it back to you, the dancer. Processed foods are not your enemy. Are there ultra-processed foods that might leave you feeling sluggish or unsatisfied? Absolutely. But that doesn't mean they're toxic, nor do they have to be completely eliminated from the diet. Processed foods can provide quick, portable energy for rehearsals, help you meet your calorie needs on intense training days, offer nutrients through processes like fortification when those nutrients from whole foods are less available, and processed foods can support variety and even overall satisfaction, which are key to protecting your relationship with food. In other words, they can be incorporated into an overall balanced dancer fuel plan in a sustainable way. Always assess, are you feeling energized? Are you feeling focused? Are you feeling ready? Those are key flags that your eating plan is supporting you. But if you're feeling stressed and anxious about a lot of foods, then we need to reevaluate. These questions matter so much more than the ingredient list on your snack bar. So a few final reminders here. Food processing is not inherently bad. It often improves food safety, accessibility, and even the palatability of your foods. Added sugar and fat and sodium, they can fit into a dancer's diet. Context always matters, rather than just isolated numbers on the back of a nutrition facts label. Long ingredient lists or ingredients that you are not familiar with doesn't necessarily equate to a food being harmful or toxic. Demonizing processed foods creates a lot of guilt, shame, and even disordered eating. Remember, flexibility is most helpful when it comes to fueling your body sustainably. And it's what I stand behind day in and day out, especially within the Healthy Dancer. This is where we focus on progress, not perfection. It means embracing abundance and variety when it comes to food and building a fueling plan that feels supported, not limited. Your preferences matter, whether that means enjoying a homemade veggie stir fry or grabbing something quick from a local fast food eatery. If you found this discussion helpful and relatable, then I highly encourage you reach out, because this is just part of the story in helping dancers learn how to utilize food as a tool to optimize their performance. I work with dancers both in group and one-on-one sessions, and I am confident that I can help you do exactly the same. You can go ahead and subscribe so you're first to know when I share new content. Also, find me on Instagram because I'm about to go and post something super helpful for all of your dance peers. And last but not least, head over to my blog, dancenutrition.com, where you can learn more about this topic and more. I'll also share that link in the show notes. But until next time, I'll talk to you soon.